So, given your specific history, first of all, I had just assumed your injury was lifting related. I was surprised to hear that you took a tumble and that's what kicked the whole thing off.
But because it was cumulative.
Oh, so you think that the fall was pre? Okay, so it was set up by all the wear you had done up to that point. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Well, it finished. It helped perpetuate it more, and then I had more and more pain. The more I lifted with bad form, the more I broke form, and then finally, when I squatted the world record 1185, that was the finishing touch on it.
Okay.
But I never had severe back pain until the fall.
So, of all of the things that led up to that injury, and then your comeback working with Stu and rewriting things, is there like a simple list, like a short cliff notes of what you think was the biggest contributor to your injury and the biggest factor in your comeback, like the few things that were vital to you repairing yourself and coming back for that big squat?
Yeah, let me keep a note here in front of me so I don't get off topic because I tend to do that.
Sure.
So yeah, so the first one being obviously the factor for injury, right?
Yeah.
And then factor for success coming back.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the biggest factors was not minding load capacity, not taking a load that was sub-maximal seriously,
Okay.
and being loose under loads and being casual. I mean, by the time I was 25 years old, I had the biggest squat in the world. I just beat Chuck Vogelpool's squat of 1,030. I was the lightest guy to squat 1,000 pounds at the time. So what are you going to tell me? Because I out-squat you I out-squat your coach, Lee Simmons. I squat, you know what I mean? So what are you going to tell me? But with that arrogance came a big price tag because I thought I was bulletproof. So I didn't take enough time to repair each year. In 2008, I competed 8 full meets. 8.
Wow.
So wear and tear, cumulative. It didn't just go from 2007, everything great, to 2009. What the hell happened? No, there was a lot of wear and tear that built up and caught up with me. The biggest thing was not stiffening my core, doing the wrong core exercises. Reverse hyper, I thought just because everyone said do the reverse hyper, I would do it and never understood why it hurt me so bad. And doing weighted sit-ups, I was actually flexion and extension intolerant, which I understand now, but I was doing these exercises hoping that somehow they were going to fix my back when it was actually just snowballing the whole injury cause, and it became worse and worse and worse. And the poor movement that I had day to day, not minding spinal hygiene, that's one of the biggest things that we'll talk about as a pro, what was one of my successes. But basically, the pros are going to be the opposite of the cons. I changed everything around, but not taking proper rest, not locking in my form, lifting too much, and just thinking I was Superman. Too much, too soon, and then my body just started to break down. And it came to a point in 2012 and 13 where I could barely make it through the meets. I had done nerve root blocks, cassette injections, epidurals. I was trying to get surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the breaking point for me in 2013 when I reached out to Dr. McGill. And we did an assessment about 4 hours. People talk about, Alex, I want to get better. I'll do anything. And then you say, okay, here's 1, 2, and 3. And they're like, I can't do it because it happens all the time. Stu said, can you be here next week? I said, I'll be there. What time? Because I didn't care. I wanted to get it done. I didn't make excuse. What's going to cost so much money? No, if you want to get your back fixed, you'll put it on the credit card. You'll sell your possessions. Whatever it is you need to do, you'll do it. Just like I want to get strong, but I don't want to eat that much. I don't want to get fat. People want everything. They want it all. They want their cake and eat it too, but it's not the way things work. There's consequences. There's consequences, and my consequences were I ignored a lot of signs that my body was telling me for years, and so I ended up seeing Dr. McGill in May of 2013, and after the 4-hour assessment and looking at the imaging and such, he looked at me and said, well, you're done lifting. I just wanted to let you know that you can't suffer any more bone trauma to which you've had to your sacrum. Your sacrum is cracked in half from the trauma that you've loaded up in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So I could probably get you out of pain, but if you were to pursue lifting again, the results could potentially be you in a wheelchair or worse.
Wow.
And so I said, okay, well, I looked at my wife and I said, well, you said you could get me pain free. So when you get me pain free, I'm just letting you know I'm going to get back to lifting again. And we went back and forth a couple times. I was respectful, but that was the only thing I pushed back against. Because keep in mind, I wasn't going to lift for a while. I was only going to worry about spinal hygiene. I was removing the causes. I was doing the big three and such. But I told him, I said, when I get pain free, I'm going to get back to lifting. And so that was the only time I pushed back against him. And finally he said, okay, first things first, we get you pain free. And then who knows, maybe you're right. Maybe we end up writing a book about it. And we wrote the book about it.
The rest is history. So of the things you said that led to the success, so you said the things that tore you down, not minding, the one that stood out at the beginning, not taking submax loads seriously. So you're talking warm-up sets, lighter working sets, treating them as if you got the maximal load on the bar, practicing the brace and the position and accelerating through and all of that, just kind of being lazy and soft. And I think a lot of people are really guilty of that. Of until you know that's new territory, the adrenaline's down, focus is off into whatever, and you develop bad habits doing that, right?
Yeah, you create poor engram. Engram is the term. You create poor engrams that are your default motor patterns. When you repeat, whether it's throwing a punch, throwing a kick, a squat, a deadlift, if you practice poorly, that's what's going to come out when you're panicking or you're under a big load. So minding my form, locking it in, dialing it in even better, taking every weight and taking it as serious as if it's significant, even if it's just the bar. Just cleaning up my movement patterns, because you got to think about your body as a bank account. If you're constantly withdrawing, abusing your body, staying up all night, not getting rest, not doing the right things to preserve your athleticism, eventually you're going to run out of athleticism. Whether it's your back, whether it's your shoulder, whether it's your knee. So what I was doing is I was destroying my body around the house, doing silly stretches, doing silly lower back foam rolling, and wondering why my back hurt. Meanwhile, I never stiffened my core or removed the causes. So I had to start completely over as a beginner and then start putting deposits back in my bank account where I moved well, I didn't pick the scab. I built more core stiffness, my pain wound down. Then slowly I was able to go from just doing walking and bird dogs to I was able to start doing carries, I was able to start doing goblet squats. And then after a couple months, after my pain wound way down, I mean, within the first couple of weeks, my pain wound down from like a 7.5 to 8 to 2, just by removing the cause and not doing dumb stuff every day that I know it's going to cause. So for the people out there watching, if getting forward causes you pain, you might be flexion intolerant, and that might be a position that you could avoid for a while, let it desensitize and wind down, and then depending on what your goals are. Now, if you're a power lifter, that's not should not be a focal point in your training, that movement, because you lift in 3 planes. You have a squat where you're up and down, you have a deadlift and you're up and down, and then your horizontal pressing on the bench. There's no flexion of the trunk involved in lifting a power lift.
Yeah.
So that isn't necessarily going to be a good move for a power lifter to do anyway. So if it's a pain generator, that's definitely not a good move. So by removing the causes, building a core of iron, letting those bones heal up that were fractured. I had in-plate fractures at L3, L4, L4, L5, and my sacrum was split in half. What we did is we stimulated bone growth by creating more micro fractures. They calloused over, and we did bone scaffolding with it, just like you do with an arm bone. If your arm breaks and it's set, it's not going to be strong in 2 weeks. But over time, when it's stimulated properly, the bone will be harder than ever. But it takes time and adaptation to do that. Just like when you don't mind adaptation of biology in lifting, you break down because it's cumulative.
Yes.
Injury is cumulative. It isn't just one event and that was it. Sometimes if it's maybe a car crash, sure. But if you've been lifting for a long time, it's usually not just the one time you're here and you're, oh, my back. It's usually been wanting to happen for a good bit of time, and you just created the perfect storm for that.